Agriculture plays a key role in the federal government's diversification plan, and state governments are beginning to buy into the idea. From Kebbi to Anambra, state governments are already exporting their agriculture commodities to generate some foreign exchange. Kogi is one of the states looking at the sector to increase her internally generated revenue. My guest on this week's episode of the program explains how the state government is approaching the federal government's agriculture revolution plan. Hello there, welcome to Dateline Abuja. I'm Gloria Umezuki. The federal government is working with state governments to implement her agriculture promotion policy. Several states are getting on board this policy, and one of them is Kogi, which was first to give up 15,000 hectares of land for the proposed cattle colony for herdsmen. The Kogi state governor explains what the state is doing to key into the agriculture policy. But first, what are the stories that made the headlines within the week in the nation's capital?
Barely 48 hours after the release of 3 lecturers of University of Maiduguri and 10 police officers' wives by the Boko Haram sect, President Muhammadu Buhari summoned an emergency security meeting at the presidential villa. The meeting, which lasted for over 2 hours, was attended by all service chiefs and the Inspector General of Police, Ibrahim Idris. It was expanded Security Council meeting as the Vice President, Professor Yemi Osinbajo, was also in attendance. The Minister of Interior, General Abdurrahman Dambazau, and his counterpart in the Ministry of Defense, Mr. Mansour Dangali, was also in attendance. Heads of paramilitary agencies like the Nigeria Security and Civil Defense Corps, the Nigeria Immigration Service, and the Federal Road Safety Commission were seen at the meeting. The issues discussed at the meeting were not made public. Meanwhile, as Nigeria works to end the Boko Haram conflict, the federal government says it is committed to ending the ideologies, propaganda, and conditions that make violent extremism and terrorism thrive. Speaking at the public presentation of the National Policy Framework and Action Plan on Preventing and Countering Violent Extremism, the National Security Advisor, General Babagana Mongunu, said that violent extremists, riding on misconceptions of religion, prolong unresolved conflict, structural and governance challenges, perceptions of injustice, have committed gross abuses and violations of human rights in parts of the country.
The Policy Framework and National Action Plan rests on 4 major objectives. These are: 1. Strengthening institutions and coordination in preventing and countering violent extremism. 2. Strengthening the rule of law, access to justice, and human rights. 3. Engaging communities and building resilience. And 4. Integrating strategic communication in preventing and countering violent extremism programs. I wish to highlight some of the immediate steps we are required to take going forward. All relevant ministries, departments, and agencies are required to include in their annual budgets preventing and countering violent extremism tasks for implementation as identified in Part 3 of the National Action Plan.
The federal government set up a committee to find solutions to the challenges of illegal migrations and human trafficking in Nigeria. Speaking at the inauguration of the committee, the Minister of Interior, Lieutenant General Abdurrahman Dambazau, retired, urged members of the committee to concentrate on identifying the reasons why many young Nigerians migrate illegally from the country despite the risks involved.
You should focus your attention not just trafficking across the desert, across Mediterranean to Europe, but continental trafficking within the African continent, and in particular regional trafficking within the sub-region. the ECOWAS sub-region, and other countries within Central Africa and Southern Africa.
The federal government has set a target of $25 billion in foreign and domestic investment from the launch of its economic-focused laboratories in March this year. The Minister of Budget and National Planning, Senator Udo Udoma, disclosed this to State House correspondents after the Federal Executive Council meeting. It was the minister's turn to inform his colleagues of his achievement in the last 2 years.
The economy came out of recession and has been growing since. The level of capital coming into the country has been increasing rapidly and dramatically. Our foreign exchange reserves have been increasing and are over $40 billion US. Inflation has been trending downward. Target for the labs alone, we target to be able to generate at least $25 billion worth of new investment.
Also, presenting a review of the activities within his ministry to the Federal Executive Council, the Minister of Water Resources, Engineer Suleiman Adamu, he also got approvals for several projects. Amongst them is the approval to increase the irrigable land available across the country by 100,000 hectares.
The other memos were for various ongoing projects, like I mentioned, some ongoing, some abandoned, which we prioritized, because when we came in, we inherited 116 ongoing large-scale projects, and we had to prioritize them after doing a technical audit. The completion of Ogbese multipurpose dam project in Ikere and Ishe Ekiti local government areas in Ekiti State, and also the Ingawa Delaji multipurpose dam project in Katsina State.